Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. Hope you're all doing good. Hope you're all doing great. We have got a big episode today. So I knew even like a day or two ago, like, oh man, this week's live chat, it's going to be a good live chat. We actually have a lot to talk about this week, right? And then news just kept coming and it just kept coming. And now we have a lot, okay? We have a lot to get to today. So what are our big topics? What are some of the highlights? Well, first of all, of course, PlayStation has officially, well, I should say Sony has officially announced the PlayStation VR2. So we knew there was a new VR headset coming. Sony had confirmed this in the past, but now we finally have some specs. We've got some details, so we can talk about that, right? We can talk about the hardware. We can talk about what we think is going to come in terms of software, release dates, pricing strategies, all that kind of stuff and more. There's a ton we can get to on that. We found out that Ghost of Tsushima has now sold over 8 million units. That was a, pretty awesome announcement. The game continues to have great legs. And then this twisted into a bit of a shocker and a stunner that went pretty viral on Twitter last night in regards to Days Gone and its sales. So we can talk about that. Jeff Ross, formerly of Bend, who has now left, tweeted out that Days Gone had sold over 8 million units in a year and a half, and it's done over 1 million on Steam. So that means this game is now over 9 million units sold, and it could be even higher than that, right? At least 9 million units sold. So we can talk about that, what that means, all the controversy around that. And then we also found out from Xbox, right? Xbox wanted to get in on the show as well. And we found out that Rainbow Six Extraction is coming to Game Pass on day one. And we also found out that Ubisoft Plus is going to be coming to Xbox as well. So news all across the board, tons of news, tons of stuff to get to. I'm going to break down each one of those topics a little bit more before I dive into your comments and questions. But for anyone, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, basically the way this works, it's a stream that's 100% driven by you. It's your comments, your questions. We just break down the video game industry's hot topics every single week. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's just the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want a 100% guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. It's already looking like a pretty stacked chat today. I'm going to get you as many free ones as possible, but if you want to get your, a guarantee that I get to your question, super chat is going to be the way to do that. Type a donation, whatever you want, it pops up and I get to super chats immediately. However, as always, do not feel pressured, do not feel obligated to donate into chat or anything like that. Just a way to help support me in the channel and make sure that I get to your questions. All right, it's already filling up. We're already getting a ton of questions. So it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big chat today. So really quick, before I start diving into all of that goodness, let me really quick give you just a brief overview about what we know about PSVR 2. And then I'm going to directly read Jeff's tweet. That way we have context around everything. And then I'm going to start diving in because we got a lot. So first of all, with PlayStation VR 2, they did not officially announce a release date, which is interesting, or even a year. I shouldn't say it's not surprising at all that we didn't get an exact date, but Sony actually didn't even officially announce if it's this year or not. I think many of us think it probably is, but they did not officially say that. But they did give us quite a few details. So first of all, it will do 4K, OLED screens, very nice to see. HDR, I think HDR is going to be a pretty great thing for this in terms of immersion. So that's really nice to see that it's going to have HDR. Eye tracking, 110 degree field of view. It's going to have vibration and haptic feedback in the headset itself, foveated rendering, 3D audio. There's new Sense controllers. And they announced Horizon VR Call of the Mountain, a first-party game coming from Guerrilla and Firesprite for that. So I'm guessing that's a launch game. Again, they didn't actually specifically say it's launched, just said it's in development. But I think that's probably clearly, if they're already showing it, one of the launch titles. So that's a little bit of info about the VR headset itself. And then I'm going to really quick read Jeff Ross's tweet here about Days Gone, and then we're diving into your comments and questions. So here's exactly what Jeff said. At the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more, and then 1 million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment. And this, like I said, went pretty viral. It was trending in the top 20 in the United States last night, which is that's pretty big considering that this wasn't like an official news piece, right? It was just a tweet that was sent out. It wasn't like some big thing that got a trailer and a whole bunch of stuff. And at least as of this morning, it was already at over 23,000 likes for the tweet. So yeah, pretty viral. I'm sure there's going to be a million questions about this. So let's start diving in. Let's start getting in because I already see a bunch of questions. Thanks everyone who's shown up. All right. Plastic Hearts Podcast kicking us off here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. Oh, and of course, I'm rocking the NASA shirt to celebrate the James Webb Space Telescope. Awesome stuff there. And you all know that I really like that kind of stuff. And so shout out to the James Webb Telescope. Everything's going amazing. Okay, Plastic Hearts here rocking a 10 right off the bat. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. Benji Boy, PSVR2 specs are beefy. With Quest Pro rumored to launch Q2 this year and Quest 3 in the works, how does Sony look to compete with PSVR 2 needing PS5 to function? Yes, this is a great question, Plastic Hearts. Thank you for that super chat. Here's the thing. Do I think that PSVR 2 at the end of the day has as high of sales potential as Quest 2 or the eventual Quest 3? I'm going to be honest with you, no. And there's a main reason for that. But keep in mind, I'm going to go a little bit more into detail here about why I still think it's worth Sony doing PSVR 2. And I think it can still be successful. However, Quest is going to have a higher pure ceiling for one specific reason. It's completely standalone. You don't need to own a PlayStation. You don't need to own a PC. You can get great quality. I have a Quest 2. I have a Quest 1. You can get great quality VR gaming completely self-contained on its own and for a pretty cheap price. I mean, you can get in at $299. So that's going to just flat out give Quest a higher ceiling, right? We already know Quest has been selling amazingly. It looks like it's on pace to by far be the most successful VR headset that's ever released. So it's doing great. So that just gives it, I mean, again, even if PS5 gets to 100 million install base, obviously not all 100 million of those people are going to buy a PSVR 2. It's only be a small percentage of that. And again, you have to have that console to have it. Quest, anything, right? You just strap it on. You just go to any store that you want, order it online. You don't need anything else besides that $300 and you're good to go. You're good to rock. So yeah, I mean, I think that Sony is probably looking at things a little different than can we just get to as high of numbers as what Quest is going to do long term. I don't think so, right? The thing that's going to make PSVR 2 a success or not isn't if it can outsell Quest. Sorry. It's going to be whether or not it can just have its own, self-sustaining library, being profitable, getting a good install base. This thing needs to outsell the original PSVR, right? Which was at last that we know about 6 million units sold. This is going to have to do quite a bit better than that, in my opinion, to be considered a success. But the direct question, how does it compete with Quest? I think that Sony needs to look at it in a different light. And I think they probably are, right? They're probably just focused on, let's make sure this thing is more successful than the original. Let's get a higher attach rate than the original had, sell more software, and that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for that super chat, Plastic Hearts. Thank you so much. All right. Another 10 here from Benji. Thank you so much, Benji. Hi, Benji. Why Sony choose not to go with a standalone? The original PlayStation VR sold only 6 million units. Can the PSVR 2 be successful when PS4 5 is hard to find and Oculus Quest is stronger competition? Very similar answer here for me in regards to the first one. Again, if Sony's directly looking at this as in we must outsell Quest, I just don't think that's going to happen. And I seriously doubt that Sony looks at it that way. Again, they're kind of different markets. Sony needs to just guarantee that this outsells the 6 million units that the original PSVR did. I think 10 plus million would be fantastic if they can get to that, right? That would be, if I was Sony, and again, they have way smarter people there than I am, but if I was Sony, I would just look at, we need to get at least 10 million of these things out there, right? Obviously, higher would be way better, but it is an accessory. It is a peripheral. If we're assuming PlayStation 5 is going to sell over 100 million, that gives you eventually around a 10% attachment rate. Clearly, again, higher than that would be excellent. But if they could even get to 10 million, that's a marked improvement over the original. And it gives you a decent attach rate for something that's going to be likely a pretty expensive peripheral as well. Why they didn't make it standalone, that's just only going to drive up the price even more. And the thing is that, the PlayStation 5 hardware is so powerful on its own. Like the PS5 is way more powerful than a Quest is. So they're going to be able to push higher end games onto it. Things like Half-Life Alyx, hopefully there's some stuff going around about that. I won't be surprised if you guys ask me about that. What we're seeing out of the Horizon game, these are the types of visuals that you're not going to be able to push right now. I mean, maybe in the future, right? Maybe once the Quest 3 comes around or something like that. So I think Sony's strategy is they want to make really immersive, really AAA, types of VR experiences. And that's going to be way harder to do on a standalone, and it's going to drive the price way up. So that's the main reason they're still going with a corded strategy. And I actually don't think it's a mistake. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is such a mistake. This should have been a direct competitor to the Quest, but it doesn't have to be, right? That's one thing that we see a lot when people talk about sales. Everything is about direct competition. Who's number one? Who's selling the most units? But the reality is you cannot be the number one seller and still be successful, right? We see that all the time in things. So again, Sony just needs to focus on making this more successful than the original. And I think it has actually a really good chance of that. Thank you for the super chat, Benji. Plastic Hearts here with a 5 super chat. Thank you, Plastic Hearts. That is your second one. Xbox was in the convo online after PSVR 2 news as they decided not to do VR. With Quest working wirelessly with PC, why doesn't Xbox allow the same? This is a great question, Plastic Hearts. Great question. So one thing we know, at least as of now, Xbox themselves, first party, their resources, they are not focused on VR. Phil has said this even fairly recently when he was asked that right now VR is just not in the plans. My guess is that right now Xbox is really trying to focus on growing the things that they, need to grow most importantly, right? Which is just their core gaming business. Getting Game Pass subs up, getting consoles sold, improving over that Xbox One generation, getting their first party output, on point, and all these studio acquisitions. Whereas Sony's a lot more of an established player in this space, in terms of having multiple 100+ million selling unit consoles, right? And having a strong first party. So they are more in a position that they can kind of experiment with this kind of stuff and play around with it, whereas Xbox is still really trying to make sure they have their core business strategy down pat. So will Xbox ever do VR? I'm not going to rule that out, right? If VR starts to really take off, if it starts to become super successful, if we start to see, Quest 2s and 3s selling multiple tens of millions of units, and if we see PSVR 2, hitting 10+ million sold, will it become a business that Microsoft won't ignore? It very well could go that way. Now, why don't they directly just work with Oculus? It's a great question, right? Because I also think it's hard to believe that Microsoft will ever make their own VR headset. I could be totally wrong there. They have a great hardware team, clearly, whenever you look at how they've built the Series X and how they built the One X. But building VR hardware, is a whole different game than building consoles. So it's not something that Microsoft has any direct experience with yet. They would be behind the ball if they ever do start to go down that road, because obviously, clearly, Oculus and Sony now have years and years of R&D and research and production on this. So if we see Xbox ever do VR, my guess is it probably will be through partnering with Oculus or something like that and allowing it to pair with it, and not directly making their own headset. That is a complete guess. I could be totally wrong on that. But as of now, I think they're just completely focused on their core business, and down the line, maybe, but hard for me to believe they're going to build their own headset, but it's not impossible, right? They did that stuff like HoloLens and things like that. So they have some experimentation in this space, but we'll have to see. Frostbite Slash here with a 5. Thank you so much, Frostbite. Happy New Year, Benji. Hope you and the family had a great Christmas. Well, thank you, Frostbite. Unfortunately, my wife and daughter were sick over Christmas, but, things worked out in the end. Everything's good. My daughter got the flu. That was a bummer that we had to deal with. So our Christmas was completely staying in, right? We didn't go see family, nothing. It was just a small, low-key Christmas for us, hanging out at the house, trying to get over being sick. But it was good overall. My daughter was super stoked. Got all kinds of presents, of course. Thanks for all the work and news you provide us with. Well, Frostbite, that's incredibly kind of you. Thank you so much. I love doing this stuff. You guys know I love the live chat. Okay. And then the second super chat here from Frostbite. Thank you so much with a 10. PSVR2 specs and names finally revealed. As a day one adopter of the original PSVR, I'm very excited to see where Sony goes with this. It packs some crazy specs, so I'm expecting it to be around 400 to 500. Awesome. Yeah, let's start talking about the conversation around pricing. What is this bad boy going to cost? Here's the thing. Specs are great, looking beefy. I think Sony has to come in at 400 max. You're seeing a lot of people wondering if this will go to 500. Here's the thing. I really can't see it, just because I think that would be a death sentence. We talk about how, I was just saying how they don't have to necessarily directly compete with Oculus in terms of like overall install base, right? But the thing is once you go up to 500, all of a sudden you look at an Oculus, if you are potentially in the VR space, and you do see a huge price gap there, right? You can go 300 or 400 for an Oculus. You're talking another additional 100 over the most expensive Quest SKU to get into PSVR. I just think that is way too expensive. Even if, the specs are great, even if, you're going to get probably overall, not universally, but overall, better, more immersive experiences with PSVR 2 over the current Quest 2 simply because the power gap. Even with those things in mind, 500 is steep. I think they got to come in 400 max. That's what I'm personally guessing it's going to be, probably $399. And that's okay, because that is pretty much, what the 256 gig Quest 2 costs. So you're coming in at equal pricing point there. Yeah, the Quest, 128 gig is cheaper, but you're at least competitive in pricing, and you can sell it on, hey, this is the only way to play these big, first party games like Horizon, that's going to be on VR, as well as I'm sure a ton of other stuff. So, if they go to 500, it's a big mistake. Being wired is going to help them in terms of bringing that price down. We also know that this thing is not shipping with a separate camera, which is also going to help. Obviously, there's still cameras and technology in the headset itself, so it's not like that's a complete wash, but it's not at least a separate manufacturing thing where you got to make the headset and then you also got to make a camera. At least it's all in one package, so I think that's also going to help bring that pricing down a little bit. So total guess, I'm going to guess 400 for the PSVR 2. Anything less would be amazing, but 500 to me is a death sentence. If they come out at 500, it's not going to sell well. It's not. Not until the price comes down. Isma Easy with a 10. Thank you so much, Isma Easy. Hey, mister, after 6 to 7 weeks since launch of Battlefield 2042, what is your take about the state of the game and how low the player base is right now. By the way, on Xbox, 25.6% have reached level 25 or above. RIP. Yeah, clearly Battlefield had a huge drop off. Even Halo has come down a lot, at least in terms of on Steam. Clearly, we don't have console numbers for Halo, active players, but like even on Steam, it's come way down. Let's check something really quick. Let's look at the peaks for Battlefield and Halo right now. This is, to me, is really interesting because it feels like none of the big competitive multiplayer shooters this year have been able to hold on to players. It's really interesting. So yeah, the 24-hour peak on Steam for Battlefield is only 12,000 players. That's really low for a game that's, a giant multiplayer game that's only been out for like, a little over a month. And then let's look at Halo. So Halo's way down there too. I mean, it's definitely better. Like, it's a lot better, actually. Their 24-hour peak is 58,000, almost 59,000. So they're pretty close to 60,000. So Halo, at least of the two, is in a better spot in terms of total players, but it is free to play, of course, whereas Battlefield you got to pay for. I will say at least Halo's holding on to a pretty good chunk. Little lower than I was hoping to see, right? Anyone that's watched this chat, they were asking me a bunch on Halo for the first couple weeks, and I was saying if this can hold on to that like 70 to 100,000 daily player range, like right in there, I think it would be a big success because that would put it up there with games like, Destiny 2 and Apex and stuff like that. But falling down, I mean, again, 60,000 is actually pretty nice. It's actually higher than I thought it was for the 24-hour peak. But yeah, I mean, clearly, let me check something. Yeah, it's under Destiny 2 now for the 24-hour peak. So, but clearly Battlefield's fallen off hard. We're talking about a game on Steam that was hitting over, at launch over 100,000 players. Now it's down to 12,000 for the peak. I mean, that is rough. Yeah, they're going to have to do some major turnarounds on Battlefield in terms of quality and things. I played this game during the EA early access trial because I'm a Game Pass subscriber. And I actually canceled my pre-order. I was that disappointed in it. And clearly they've not been able to hold on to players. So, yeah, it's not good. Isn't it easy? It's not good. To be that low this quickly on a game that's, it's only multiplayer, right? Halo, at least it has a campaign and stuff as well. And it is still holding way higher player counts. We're talking its peak is almost 6 times higher than what Battlefield's hitting. So, yeah, they're going to have to make some major work on that game. Major work. And they're going to have to really excite people with additional features and things like that to have any hope of bringing this back to a high player count. We know it sold a lot out the gate. It was one of the best sellers of the entire year on Steam. We just got those charts like a week or so ago. So we know out the gate this game sold spectacularly well, but it does not look like it has legs. So that's going to be the problem for it. Thank you for that super chat, Isma Easy. All right. Some more super chats here. Split End 89 with a 2. Thank you so much, Split End. Best mod in the business. Thanks for a good turnout today, everyone. Over 60 concurrent. For me, that's good to see. So thank you so much for a good turnout. 2. How about that Days Gone conversation? All right. Split End's the first one to get it in there with his super chat. So let's talk about Days Gone. Okay. I'm not going to go on a giant thing here for Days Gone because I want to give other people chances to ask about this as well because I'm expecting there is a ton of questions about Days Gone. So let's give Split End the first surface level analysis, right? Okay. Anyone that's followed me for a solid period of time, you can even go back to 2019 when this game came out, in 2020, my tweets. And I was saying this game sold a lot more than people think it did. It sold a lot more. I don't know why Sony won't give PR. I said that repeatedly. I even said it on these chats. Days Gone sold a lot of units, a lot more than most of you think. I don't know why they won't give PR. Now we know. This game has probably sold 10 million copies. Y'all, for a new IP, that is excellent. I mean, there's no other way to phrase it. That's excellent. When you count Steam, we're looking at probably 10 million units sold here. It did 8 million in a year and a half on just PlayStation. It did it did an additional million on just Steam. That puts you at 9 million, and then you basically have an additional year's worth of sales there on console that's unaccounted for. And Jeff just said over 8 million. That could have been 8.3, 8.4, 8.5. Who knows? We're looking at a game that more than likely has sold 10 million units. Now, couple things to keep in mind. Days Gone did sell a lot of units at a cheaper price point, right? Was all these 10 million sold at $60? No, of course not, right? So you're seeing a lot of people get into arguments that, yeah, the sales pace is similar to Ghost of Tsushima, but the profit margins are probably not the same. And I would agree with that. Ghost of Tsushima should overall be a much more profitable game than Days Gone was, because Ghost of Tsushima has held a way higher price. Its actual regular selling price is still $60, right? It goes on sale. It does get discounted at times, but not near as steeply as what we saw at Days Gone. But here's the thing. Days Gone, I can tell you right now, was profitable. Like, I know that literally for a fact that it was a profitable game. And one thing that's interesting is that a potential sequel actually, I was talking to some people about this on Install Base, that forum, and I had mentioned, like, Days Gone 2 was probably the rare sequel that likely would have been cheaper to make than the original. So Days Gone 1 had a very long and troubled development cycle. Bend had never made a game of this scope before. They had never made a giant open world title like this before. They'd never tried to deliver a huge cinematic, this game is a long narrative driven experience like this. So I really doubt that the sequel would have taken near as long to develop as the original. You could probably shave off multiple years of dev time there. By shaving off, let's say you even cut 2 years of dev time, that's going to reduce the budget by a lot, right? So, and a lot of the technology that they had to invest in on the original, right? They had to figure out how to use Unreal Engine, figure out all those tools and all that. I seriously doubt the sequel would have been as expensive as the original. I think it's absolutely insane that Sony did not give this team one more chance to make a sequel to it. It'd be one thing if this game had come out and all this troubled development and sold 2 or 3 million copies, but y'all, we're talking probably 10 plus million. That is crazy that they didn't greenlight that. Almost unheard of, to be honest with you. In all the industry, I've almost never heard of a new IP selling 10 million units and not getting a follow-up. I'm not going to say it's never happened. We're talking borderline unheard of territory to not get a sequel. Raises a lot of questions. Why would this be? Was it because that critical reception? I do think it plays a part here. But it's crazy. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. It makes a lot of sense why there was a lot of departures from Bend. About a year ago, Jason Schreier had written an article about this. You can see more info on it there. But I can only say, and I can't go super crazy on this because I actually know a lot of people at Bend. But I have to imagine that it was very frustrating seeing other games get all these sales milestone updates that Sony was doing all the time and them never mentioning Days Gone, right? That had to be pretty painful, I'd imagine, if you're a dev at Bend and you're seeing, here's a sales update for this game, and here's a sales update for that game, and here's a sales update for another. And meanwhile, your game, which is selling multiple millions of units, you're not even getting a single shout out. That had to be incredibly frustrating. So it's a bummer. The thing is, we know Ben's getting a new IP now, so I'm very happy that they're at least getting a chance to do something big and cool next. But it is crazy to me that they didn't even get one more chance, right? One more shot. Yeah, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Timmer here with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. Always being in chat, always being so supportive, saying keep being awesome. You keep being awesome as well, Timmer, and thank you for that super chat. Benji here with a 5. Thank you so much, Benji. I think that's your second super chat, man. Thanks. Benji, are you surprised Sony announced PSVR2 during CES? Yes, I didn't expect that at all. CES hasn't been big for gaming news in years. Could this be a sign of Sony at Oh, great question. Great question. Could this be a sign of Sony at GDC or E3? That is a great point. If GDC goes down this year as like a big event, it very well could be that PSVR2 is going to have a big presence at GDC. That's a great question, Benji, and I actually didn't even think about that. Is Sony going to be at E3 this year? I don't think so. I would love to see it. I would love to be wrong on that. But, I've mentioned it before. Sony gives me the vibe that they always, from now on, are just going to stick to their own shows, their own presentations, and not be involved with E3. I would love to see them there, but that is a great point that there's a good chance they could be at GDC with PSVR 2 in a big way. Yeah, very well could be. I don't know if all that stuff is going to be like public, like they're going to make a ton of announcements around GDC, but if they are going to be there in a big way and they are going to be talking to devs heavily about PSVR 2 there, it would make sense to announce it before that, right? Because you don't want all that info to leak out, which it definitely would have. If they just showed up there with it and they're like, hey, don't say anything, but we're going to give you all the specs for PSVR, that would have leaked out like the next day. So, yeah, that's a great point, Benji. Totally makes sense. I had mentioned that I thought that this was going to be, I think it was even the last live chat, I was saying PSVR 2 this year would be amazing, but I think it's going to be 2023. I completely take that back now. I feel almost positive this is going to be this year. I see no reason why you would announce this as early as January, the very beginning of the year, and not launch this until 2023, right? It'd be one thing if they had announced this, let's say in like September. Clearly, obviously, be a next year thing. But if you're announcing it at the beginning of the year, I do think this launches this year. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to come this year. I was surprised to see it at CES so early on. And that's a great point about GDC. That's a great point. Frostbite Slash here. I think that's your third super chat. Holy cow. Thank you, Frostbite. Half-Life Alyx, PSVR 2, thinking emoji. Yeah, so I had sent out a tweet and yesterday, just musing, right? I was like, I wonder if Half-Life Alyx, if they're going to strike a deal between Sony and Valve to bring that to PSVR 2. Keep in mind, Valve has not released a Valve-developed console game in forever. It has been years and years. So on one hand, it's like, it's been so long that Valve has just done like their own developed games on a console. It's like, man, is that ever going to happen again? But on the flip side, while Half-Life Alyx did seem to perform pretty well for a VR game in terms of sales, again, we have to just say for a VR game because VR games, for the most part, aren't selling at the types of volumes that traditional games are. It seemed to do pretty well for a VR-specific game. It was in the charts for the best-selling games of the year that year. It had hit the Steam Top 100 games sold. So it seems like it did pretty decent, but at the same time, putting it on a console and a VR2, that opens it up to a whole nother audience that does not have, maybe access to a high-end PC to run Half-Life Alyx. Because the thing is like, even if you have, a VR headset, like, you got to have a pretty good PC. Not like the top-end, most amazing PC, but you got to have a pretty decent PC to even run Half-Life Alyx. So you're going to have a decent PC VR headset, and you're going to have a decent PC itself to run this game. So, there's a lot of people that just don't do that, right? That don't PC games. So you're potentially opening it up to a whole nother audience. And then you saw Special Nick, I think it was, retweeted my tweet. And he said he had heard that this was basically a done deal. Like, it's going to happen. So it makes a lot of sense. I can tell you I played Half-Life Alyx on PC when it came out. And it was, to me at least, the most, and I'm not even a huge Half-Life fan, to be honest with you. It blew me away. It's still to this day the best thing I've ever played in VR in terms of like a AAA immersive experience. I love Beat Saber and stuff like that, which is really hard to compare that to something like Half-Life Alyx. They're like completely different types of experiences. But, Half-Life Alyx pretty much blew my mind. That would be an incredible launch title. Like, if PSVR 2 launches with Horizon Call of the Mountain and Half-Life Alyx, that would be incredible. You want to talk about a great way to sell that headset off the bat. That 1-2 punch combo, I think you would move VR units off that. Yeah, Half-Life Alyx with a Horizon game day one, that'd be amazing. So hopefully I really hope this happens. It'd be huge. It'd be huge, yeah. Ryan, Let's Go Sports Team with a 2 super chat. Hey Benji, thoughts on release date for PSVR2? Thank you for that super chat, Ryan. My guess is going to be late this year. I do for sure think it's this year now. Again, like I was saying earlier, I don't know why you would announce this in January and then launch it next year. That'd be a really long wait, right? I can't see that happening. I have to think it's targeted for this year now if they're going to announce it this early in the year. My guess, late holiday season this year, right? Probably a little bit before. Like, I don't see them putting this out in November, right? Whenever they're trying to get production really high for PS5s themselves and stuff like that. But I think it'll be towards the end of the year. So I could see this as maybe like a September or October release date for this thing. That's my guess. Yeah, my guess is we're looking very late this year. September, October, maybe even November. But I'm going to guess they try to get it out before that giant holiday rush on consoles. So there's a little bit of a gap there, but we'll have to see. But I do think it's 2022. I will say that. I definitely do now. Dead Planet here with a 10 super chat. Thank you so much, Dead Planet. Thanks for all the super chats today. They're nuts. Can anyone really ever touch Fortnite? Dude, great question. It's a game that brings in characters from every piece of entertainment ever. It's as meta as it gets. Halo, Apex, PUBG, etc. can't do things like that. I mean, you're pretty spot on, Dead Planet. And this is something we talked about, when we were talking about Halo holding players, and we're talking about, Battlefield trying to hold players, and even Call of Duty this year seemed to perform really bad. We're going to have to see, some more details whenever Activision comes out with their earnings report. They're going to definitely try their best to make Vanguard look as successful as possible, but every indication we have is that this game massively underperformed compared to, the last few Call of Duties. So, and here's the thing, Fortnite is a part of that. It really is. That sounds weird to a lot of people, but it is. Games like Apex Legends, games like PUBG, these free-to-play games, I truly am starting to think now, are starting to pull a lot of players away from big, new, especially shooter, free-to-play releases, right? There's so much competition in this market right now, and so many people are just on Fortnite every night, or they're on Call of Duty Warzone every night, or they're on Apex Legends with their friends every night, and I think it's getting really hard to pull those players away long-term, right? You might be able to get a big flash early, people trying out your game. Hey, it's a new thing. We're going to play this for a little bit. But a lot of people, I think there's a lot of evidence now, are doing that for a little bit, and then they're going right back to Fortnite. They're going right back to Apex. They're going right back to Destiny 2. All these big free-to-play games. So it's a great question, Dead Planet. Can any, big shooter type thing replace Fortnite in terms of, especially what you're saying, like the meta type experience? It's going to be tough to say. Tough to say. Fortnite continues to be a monster, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Anytime soon. Thank you for that super chat, Dead Planet. I think they're clear. Holy cow, I think we are clear. Super chats are clear. Thank you for all those super chats, everybody. Thank you so much. All right, let's start diving into free questions. That was a whole huge rush of super chats. All right, let's start here with the top. Diar Amaro. Hi, Jeff Ross used the celebration of a studio to shame PlayStation for not giving them the sequel. Why he didn't say that months or days ago? Do you think this will not hurt other devs like Sucker Punch? Saying things like the new leadership is bad, Sony bias towards Metacritic, Sony bias towards Death Stranding. He said that in his Twitter replies. Blaming PlayStation, blaming players to buy the game and support the studio at launch, saying the game is 8 or 9 million sold. But he didn't say the game was in discount almost a month after release, and the reception and perception of game is vastly different against Ghost of Tsushima. All great questions. So here's the thing. And again, I actually have to be kind of careful what I say here. This is a bit of a situation where, I'm not going to say I'm like BFFs with Bend, but I do know a lot of people at Bend, like a lot, probably more than any other PlayStation first-party studio. It's definitely up there, I would say at least. So here's the thing. I believe that what happened last night, this was last night, right? So much stuff has happened in the last few days. Yes, last night. I think what we saw from Jeff was, and again, I don't want to speak for him, so, this could be not exactly what happened, but this is what I feel like happened. I think Jeff finally, it was the Ghost of Tsushima, I think, was, as the saying goes, the straw that broke the camel's back. I think a lot of these thoughts have been stirring for a long time. I think a lot of people at Bend felt that their story wasn't being properly told. And I think that the Ghost of Tsushima announcement wasn't meant in any way to insult Sucker Punch. Again, Sucker Punch seems like an amazing studio. I know a lot of people on that team as well. I don't think this was meant in any way to take away from the success of Ghost of Tsushima. I think what happened here is that Jeff and other people at Bend, or formerly at Bend, had been knowing for years that their game was selling millions of units and Sony wouldn't say anything about it. And you have to put yourself in that position if you are someone making these games. And again, I'm not going to say every point that Jeff's made here is accurate in terms of like, was Sony focusing on Death Stranding over them? Again, I don't know all the internal workings at Sony by any means, right? Jeff is going to know a lot more about what's going on here than me in terms of that type of stuff. But I have to imagine if you're a dev and you have one of the fastest selling PlayStation first party games, because it is, if what we're hearing is accurate, that it sold basically over 8 million units in a year and a half, it's one of, not the, but it's one of the fastest selling first party games that Sony's had, even if that's discounted and you're not getting anything out there. Sony never gave a single sales update for Days Gone. I have to imagine that was incredibly frustrating and was probably building for years. And again, I think that this Ghost of Tsushima thing, it was just probably Jeff finally being like, you know what, screw it. We're going scorched earth and I'm putting this all out there. And I can't say that I blame him, I can't say that I blame him. I understand why he did it. Again, I don't think that this was meant in any way to take away from Sucker Punch. I don't think this was in any way like, screw or be mean towards Sony as a whole. I just think that a lot of people at Bend feel like that their story wasn't being properly told. So that's what I'll say in regards to that. But thank you for those comments, Dior, very much. All right, Javier. I feel pretty bad about the Days Gone situation. Taking the spotlight off Sucker Punch during their moment is gross, self-centered, and fanning the flames. See, this is again where I'm a little different than you guys. I'm a little different than you guys, for sure, on this one. I mean, Sucker Punch has had a lot of sales updates. A lot. They've gotten movie announcements. All right, there's a Ghost of Tsushima movie coming. There's multiple sales updates. Again, I think that people are looking at this a little wrong in terms of like saying that Jeff's honestly in the wrong for doing this. I don't think he's in the wrong for doing this at all. How would you feel if you spent 6+ years making a game, it sold probably 10 million units, and Sony never put a single number out there for you? I mean, if you're in Bend or Jeff's shoes, you're going to be pretty freaking salty about it. I can guarantee you that. So, again, was it handled perfectly? I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm not at Bend. I am not at Sony. I am not green-lighting these games. I can only give you this as an outside observer and knowing a little bit, a tiny bit, of some stuff. And I don't blame him. I do not blame him for it. I really don't. I really don't. Joseph Crank. I remember one article saying, I think it was Jason Schreier, or his interview with Jaffe, Days Gone never had a proper management during all of the development of the game. Yeah, it was a very troubled development. No question about that. And I think that actually did play a big part in the no sequel thing. I think that game was in development for so long. Again, I think Sony should have given them a second chance because I think they would have taken a lot of learnings from the first game and really, A, improved the sequel overall, and B, it probably would have had a lot better dev cycle than the first. But my guess here is that Sony, here's the thing, and this is just a guess, I think the main factor, a lot of people are pointing towards the Metacritic, and I actually do think that's a factor, but I think it's a factor in a bit of a different way than some people are framing it. Some people are saying, oh, it's strictly because of this score, that's why they didn't get a sequel, because the game was profitable. I'm literally telling you that right now. It's profitable before the Steam release even came out, so that just made the game even more profitable. But my guess, Sony looked at this game. They're like, dude, it was in development for like 6+ years. It was super troubled. It was all over the place for years and years and years. And then the final game that came out didn't review well. So that probably made them super cautious about greenlighting a sequel. Is this going to happen to us again, right? I think that's the main factor in terms of the Metacritic factoring into this. It's not just, hey, you made this game in like 2 or 3 years and it didn't review that great. Man, that sucks. It's more like, hey, you guys made this game for like 6+ years and it still didn't deliver in terms of critical reception at the end of the day. And you sold a lot of units, but as we mentioned, a lot of those were discounted. And I think these are, if we're being pro Sony here, right? If we're looking at this from Sony's point of view, because rarely is it just someone's a bad guy, right? Rarely is it, I'm just a big evil corporate warlord and there's no reason, I'm just not going to give you a sequel. Usually there is reasons behind all this. Again, I still think they should have gotten a second chance. I think the second game would have been a smoother development cycle and probably reviewed better. But that's probably the way Sony looked at it. Hey, we gave you years and years and years, managed, the development was a mess, and this game reviewed, as one of our lowest games at the end of the day. So we're just not going to move forward. So those are some factors I think, yeah. Gmaster7. Hey, Benji, what is Ubisoft thinking? Launching this monthly service in 2019, rebranded it in Q4 2020, released 0 products from January to October 21, and now decided not to fold it into Game Pass a la EA Play. And then there's a follow-up here from Gmaster. Between this, their games in development hell, the NFT bust, their culture issues, the games no one wants, is there a company with less direction right now? I've said this many times on the chat. I don't feel optimistic about Ubisoft's future. And again, you're talking to somebody right now. I say that, and if you would have asked me at the midpoint of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One generation, I would have told you that Ubisoft was probably the publisher in my mind that had the most upside. They were last gen, whether you liked these games or not, they were releasing huge new IPs that sold gigantic numbers. The original Watch Dogs, absolutely massive. The original The Division, absolutely massive. They took Assassin's Creed, and whether you liked the formula or not, games like Origins and Odyssey just became these giant sellers, literally taking the franchise like to new heights in terms of like great legs and way outselling games like Syndicate and Unity and all this. They were a company that, of course, had their issues, announcing things like Beyond Good and Evil 2, having Mario and Rabbids be a big sales success. Like, there was just so much upside. You looked at midpoint of last gen, and I would have told you, man, this company, they're on like such a good trajectory. Like I feel really optimistic about their future. I'm literally now the opposite. They are basically them and Activision Blizzard are the two, that to me have the least upside currently. Ubisoft, I don't know what happened there. Obviously, we know a whole bunch of stuff happened in terms of, sexual misconduct allegations, all kinds of stuff in regards to that. But let's also just talk about like the creative process. This company randomly decided we're going all in on free to play. We're going all in on, like shooters, and like just a complete refocus that to me doesn't look good. So I could be wrong, right? I say this all the time. I could be radically wrong. Maybe X Defiant comes out and it's a giant success. Maybe, The Division Heartlands comes out and it's a giant success. Maybe all these free-to-play games, we're all bashing them and we're hating on them. Maybe they're all giant successes, and all of us that are sitting here being like, man, they don't look like they're heading in a good direction. Maybe we're all totally wrong, right? You don't know the future until it happens. But if you ask me right now, is Ubisoft on a good trajectory? My answer is no way. They, to me, seem they're headed radically in the wrong direction. And I always say this. This is not meant as an insult at all to the creatives there. I know that there's a ton of creative, amazing people at Ubisoft doing awesome stuff. It's more just like the business direction and the strategy direction. I highly question it. Highly question it. So we'll have to see, yeah. Now, in regards to why isn't Ubisoft Plus as part of Game Pass, I think the main factor here is simply pricing. So EA Play was, I think that's $4.99 a month, right? Let me double check that to verify, but let me see something here. I think it's $4.99 a month, and I think Ubisoft Plus is 15. We're talking 3 times, I think. Yeah, it's $4.99 a month, and now let's look at Ubisoft Plus. I want to say it's $15. $14.99 a month. So Ubisoft Plus is 3 times the price of EA Play. So in order to make that part of Game Pass, you'd have to negotiate one heck of a deal. And here's the thing. Microsoft would probably have to pay them because Ubisoft is going to look at it this way, right? When EA Play puts out a number for being part of Game Pass, and when Ubisoft Plus puts out a number for being part of Game Pass, part of these negotiations, part of it is going to be, hey, how much, monthly subs are we potentially sacrificing by just going into your service, right? Becomes a math equation. Let's say EA Play says, we feel, this is a random number. Do not take this as gospel. Let's say EA says, we feel like we're going to lose 2 million subscribers, that we could have gotten just separately now that we're part of Game Pass, because they're just not going to sub to EA Play. They're going to sub to Game Pass and get it that way. You factor in $5 a month. You do a math equation. Clearly, there's more to it than this, but that will be part of it, right? How much money are we giving up from subscribers to be part of your service? If you're talking it's 1/3 the price for EA Play as what Ubisoft Plus is, Ubisoft's going to come with a way higher number for that, right? If you're giving up, the X amount of subs at $5 monthly, now we're giving up $15 monthly off that. And so that's my main guess. My main guess is Microsoft probably was like, we're not going to pay you that much. I don't know. This is not insider info at all. But I'm guessing Ubisoft probably came with a way higher number than what EA Play was to be part of that subscription. And that's why it's not happening. Whether that was a smart move by Ubisoft or not can be highly debated. But that's my guess. My guess is that's why it's not in the service. And why it's still a separate subscription. All right, we had multiple super chats drop. Let me hit those super chats. Holy cow, big chat today. Knew it would be. We still got lots of time, though, so don't sweat it. I'm still going to get to a lot of questions. I'm going to tell you there ain't no way I'm going to be able to hit all the free questions, but there's still a lot of questions I'm going to get to. Whole bunch. But I think we just had like 4 super chats drop. All right, Dead Planet here with a 5. Thank you so much, Dead Planet. So, Silent Hill. Sounds like everything from a Silent Hill 1 remake for PS5 to a Bluebird Team Silent Hill for Xbox. Are we about to get dueling exclusives? Dead Planet, all I can say about Silent Hill is that I heard info on the franchise as a whole quite a long time ago. I had a lot of reason to believe that that info at the time was accurate. And there's nothing else I really can say about it other than 2 things. A, it's been so long that I'm not 100% sure if that info was accurate. I mean, put it this way. This was one of those rumors that I actually dug into a little bit more to see if it was real. Then I do some. Some I just hear stuff and I'm like, whatever. This one I tried to do a little more research to see if this was like a legitimate thing. I found some stuff that made me think it probably was. However, it has been so long. I mean, I think I heard that 2 years ago now, what I had heard. That my guess is one of either 2 things. A, either the person that gave me that info gave me a very elaborate fake, including, and I won't say directly how, but impersonating someone, which would be interesting. That would be pretty interesting. Or, and what is maybe the more likely scenario, is that plans changed. I never put out what I'd heard. There's a reason you don't see me do too much of the insider game. I will do like little hints every once in a while, especially about stuff that I'm really certain on. Like if you go back, I was hinting that Dead Space was coming back. That was one recently. and there's a few others, right? I'll hint at some stuff occasionally when I'm like really certain about it. Silent Hill, I never said what I had heard, just that I had heard info quite a while ago that I thought was real. Maybe that info A changed because this was old. We're talking like 2 years ago. Or B, it was a very elaborate fake, including impersonation. So, is there more Silent Hill coming? I still think there is. What that's going to be? Is it a remake for PS5? Is it Bluebird Team making Silent Hill? I don't know. Somebody else is going to have to get more info on that than me. I'm not digging into Silent Hill because there's a million fake rumors about that franchise like every week or month. But Dead Planet, do I think Silent Hill is still coming back in some form? Yes, I do still think so. What form that's going to be, I'm not sure. Thank you for that super chat. Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a 5. Reading some Japan sales data for 2021. Switch sold 5.3 million units. 5 times all other consoles combined. Yes, complete and utter Switch domination in Japan. Like, it's utterly dominant. PS4 sold 8,000 more than X and S. Thoughts? So a couple things. In regards to PS4 sales, that's basically just because PS4 is done. Like, it's never going to reach 120 million. We had all thought, like everyone, thought this was going to hit 120 million lifetime. And it would have hit 120 million lifetime. But we've talked about on this chat, the pandemic basically killed it, right? Sony, once the pandemic hit, once chip shortages hit, Sony had to make a decision. Do we still keep making PS4 consoles alongside PlayStation 5? Which we can't even make enough of anyways? Or do we just go all in? PS4 is basically done. I mean, I think their last quarter they shipped maybe 100,000 units. I'd have to go back. This is off the top of my head, but I think it was like maybe 100K. So it was basically just, listen, either we kill PS4 a little early and just focus all manufacturing resources that possible on PS5 so we get as many of these as we can, or we potentially sacrifice getting some PS5s out there to keep PS4 alive. And I think they made the right decision and essentially said, listen, PS4 is dead. Like, it had a great life. It had a great run. It's still going to get some software releases. Maybe we still ship something like maybe 100,000 a quarter or something like that for a couple quarters, but essentially it's done. And so that makes sense to me, actually, that PS4 was so low because they're just not really making them anymore. In regards to Switch utterly dominating Japan, yeah, I mean, it's like it's almost laughable how one-sided it is. Even if you look at the software charts in Japan, it's just like almost every week, it's almost every single game's a Switch game, right? Every once in a while, you'll see like a PlayStation game sneak in there. But for many weeks, it's essentially Switch by a landslide above all other platforms combined, plus completely and utterly dominating the software charts. For Xbox, this is less big of a deal because Xbox has never sold many units there ever. Even their best-selling console ever, the 360, only sold 1 million. So, they've never had a good foothold there. And 360 was a way outlier, by the way. Like Xbox One, the original Xbox, both of those sold nothing near what 360 did. So for Xbox, it's like, it sucks. Like, I'm sure they want to improve in that market. And there is signs that they are. I personally think that Series X and S in Japan are going to outsell the original Xbox there. I do not think it's going to hit 360 numbers, but I do think it'll outsell the original Xbox, which is, I think, 500,000, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 500K. I think they'll do over that. I don't think they'll hit 360 numbers, but I mean, it's still an improvement, right? If they can get to their second best-selling console there ever, it's still super niche, but it's at least better than what they did with the One and the original Xbox. The main issue here is potentially for Sony. We'll have to see in terms of PS5, because right now it's just off to a bit of a rough start in Japan, particularly in regards to software. And that becomes an issue potentially in third-party Japanese support if they start to really lose momentum there. I think the giant AAA games that are aiming for a worldwide audience, the Dragon Quests, I fully expect that to be on PS5 and Switch. I expect that to be on both. You look at, Final Fantasy, which we know is exclusive right now. You look at games like Forspoken, which we know are exclusive. These giant global aiming Japanese games, the Resident Evils, they have no risk of losing that type of support. But those like AA games, right? Or those even like smaller, those A or AA Japanese games, they do risk losing some of that because those teams don't have the kind of budget and they're not always aiming for a global appeal. And if they can only prioritize one console, clearly it's going to be Switch because it has a massively more impressive install base and software sales in Japan. So it'll be interesting. That's going to be the long-term question. Sony really needs to improve there, I think, but we'll have to watch. We'll have to see. Thanks for that super chat. Timmer with a 20. Holy cow, Timmer, dude. You did not need to do one that big at all. But thank you so much, Timmer. Who would be the right developer? Oh, great question. For a good Superman game. Great question. Plus, contrary to popular belief, majority of the games Bethesda published actually turned a profit / made money. Mentioned in the ZeniMax Bethesda history file. Well, first of all, thank you for that tidbit there, Timmer. You're one of the best in the entire business out there in terms of covering Bethesda. So anyone that is looking for Bethesda coverage, Timmer knows his stuff when it comes to Bethesda and ZeniMax. So thank you for that shout out. That's great to hear because yeah, a lot of games people question, right? How did Prey 2? How did, financially? How did games like Dishonored 2 do financially? The Evil Within 2. So that's great to hear that for the majority, they were making at least some profit on them. And in terms of a good Superman game, man, it's a great question. It's a great question. If we were going WB, I would have to just say Rocksteady, just because I think Rocksteady is the best team they've got. So if anyone in they have amazing teams, right? They have like NetherRealm, but it's hard for me to think that NetherRealm is going to make an amazing Superman game considering they just make fighting games. I'd love to see them try other genres, but going from Mortal Kombat to a, big giant Superman game is a pretty radical change. So if we're looking at the devs that they currently have that make those types of games, if any of them were going to pull it off, it would be Rocksteady. But if we just for fun say they license the IP out, who outside of that, I'm going to say, and this would never happen, just because Spider-Man was so good, I'm going to say Insomniac. Insomniac right now is the dev that feels like they most get making awesome superhero games. I think Guardians of the Galaxy was amazing, by the way. It's just hard for me to see that team being able to pull off soups. But, and again, this would never happen. But if you just asked me to pick, probably Insomniac. I know that's, just because Spidey's so good. Like, I'm going to throw it out there to a dev that has proven they can make amazing superhero games. That'd be a fun one. Insomniac. So I'd say either Rocksteady or Insomniac, or maybe even maybe even Sucker Punch. I know that's another Sony studio, but they made Infamous, so it's another game with powers. Maybe something like that. All right, Hanato SZFR here with the 5 super chat. What happened to Metal Gear Solid Remake? Oh, hopefully it's coming. Bluepoint has probably finished or is very close to finishing their second PS5 remake before doing their original game. It's a great question. A lot of people have wondered, there was that whole cryptic tweet that that Bluepoint sent out that one time and has never referenced again or followed up on or explained, where they sent out a tweet that had references to things like Demon Souls, had things like Metal Gear Solid references in it, had, I think, even Castlevania references in it. And everyone always wondered, like, what is this tweet? Like, is this hinting at future projects? Is it just some random, weird, fun thing you tweeted out? Here's what I'll say. Do I think a Metal Gear Solid remake is happening? I would love to see it. I have no idea if it is or not. Would Bluepoint be the ones to do it? That would be the one I would most hope to see because they are excellent at remakes. We all know that by now. And Metal Gear Solid, the original particularly, has such a strong attachment to PlayStation. I know it went other places later on, right? Whenever they did like that one remake that was on like GameCube and stuff or whatever. But by and large, the original Metal Gear Solid is seen as like it's just such a PlayStation related title that at the same time, I totally get that being an exclusive remake. Odds are 50-50 for me. I have no idea if that game's actually going to happen or not. And in terms of, the other part of the question, does Blue Point have a second PS5 remake in the works? Very possible. Very possible. Blue Point is the type of company we know they can release remakes pretty quick. I mean, if you look at the total development time between Shadow of the Colossus remake and Demon's Souls remake, shockingly quick, right? Is that 2 years between them? I think it was only 2 years. What is the release date for Shadow of the Colossus remake? 2018. It was 2 years. And Demon's Souls remake was 2020, right? So 2018 into 2020. Yep, 2 years. So, I mean, theoretically, yeah, if they were able to go at the same pace, that would mean that their second remake, if they could keep a similar development time, you're right, it would come basically at the end of this year, right? End of 2022. That'd be 2 years from Demon's Souls. So it could be happening. We know Blue Point's making an original game, they've said. Possible. I don't know, though, Hanato. I don't know. Carlos here with a 2 super chat. Pio. Oh, what's up, Pio? Pio White Wolf is in chat. What is up, Pio? I love Pio. Saying 2.5 years. Yeah. Yep. Pio, you're amazing. Love you, buddy. All right. Carlos here with a 2. Anything on Forza Horizon 5 and Halo sales? Carlos, clearly Forza Horizon 5 sold a freaking ton. We know that in the US it had the biggest launch ever in sales, right? In direct sales. So everyone was talking about the game's Game Pass performance, which clearly is incredibly impressive. But NPD and Matt Piscatella confirmed that launch month in November, not only did this game do great on Game Pass, it was the biggest launch ever for the entire Forza franchise, whether it's Motorsport or Horizon ever in the US in sales. So clearly we know Forza Horizon 5 sold a ton. Lots of indications its legs are great. I mean, it's still, I think last week, right? It's still in the top 10 best-selling weekly games on Steam. Legs seem to be really good on it. A total number for you, I have no idea, but we're talking an amazing performance overall in sales. Yeah, Forza Horizon 5, there's no doubt. Sold incredible. Halo Infinite's a lot bigger question. We actually haven't had any sales reports on that yet. We got some stuff out of the UK, but it was mostly meaningless stuff in regards to physical sales. And Halo is one of the games in particular, anyone that's been following me for a while, I say that not every game gets cannibalized by Game Pass, but Halo was one of the ones I felt probably would because of 2 reasons. So Forza Horizon 5, if you want to own this game, right, you get the full package essentially, right, for $60. It's still enticing to go out there and buy it, especially if you're not a Game Pass subscriber, because you're still getting a big, huge, full package game at $60, whatever. Halo, to me, seems like a prime game to get cannibalized because that multiplayer being free to play. So the fact that that was completely free to play, you're essentially going out there and spending $60 purely on the campaign. That's it, right? Whereas if you're getting that multiplayer free to play, it's really enticing to just be I can go out and spend 60, or since I'm a Game Pass subscriber, if you are, I can just play the campaign there, and, it seems more cost effective considering the multiplayer is totally free than to go out there and drop $60 essentially purely for campaign. I'm not opposed to people doing that. I totally get why people do that. And I still think Halo sold probably pretty good overall. But anyone that's followed me for a long time, they ask me, how's Halo going to sell? Purely sales. And I always said, do not be surprised if Halo's not a gargantuan seller. The more important thing for Halo specifically is actually players, because the main way this game's monetizing is through its free-to-play. How many battle passes are they selling? How many microtransactions are they selling? How many Game Pass subs are they getting for that campaign? So Halo, I would say, we don't know because we haven't seen hard data yet, but my guess is it, by Halo franchise standards, isn't an amazing seller, but that's a little less important specifically this time around because of that monetization through free-to-play. Forza we know sold well. Like, there's no doubt. Forza, I mean, biggest launch ever in the US for that franchise. Okay, Frostbite here. Tom Henderson tweeted about The Last of Us remake almost being completed, with Factions 2 and The Last of Us 2 Director's Cut also coming. Could we see the remake released this year and Factions / The Last of Us 2 bundled together for 2023? You know what? Tom Henderson has been like throwing a million rumors out there lately. Here's what I'll say. Tom, it is very clear to me, and this isn't going to be anything negative towards Tom. I'm just saying, like, this is the risk you get into when you try to play the insider game. Tom, there is zero question about it, has legit sources. Like, Tom has definitely 100% been accurate on multiple things. Not a doubt in my mind, you can consider Tom Henderson a quote-unquote real insider. I will say, my only worry here for Tom is he's starting to throw out, like, rumors about everything. Like, Tom Henderson used to be more of like a shooter insider, right? It was more about like Call of Duty stuff and Battlefield stuff and things like that. And now it's like everything. Rockstar stuff, Sony stuff, everything stuff. This could all be totally right. I'm telling you, I'm not discrediting Tom Henderson here. I would just say for his own mental health's sake, he might want to be a little careful because of how many rumors he's throwing out. Because if some of this stuff starts to come back like not accurate, he's going to get a wave of people being mean to him. And he might not care about that, right? Like, some people literally don't care. And I've actually started to become that way myself. Like, nowadays I'm pretty numb to people being mean. When I first started out, it would really hurt. Now I 99.9% of the time I just don't care. So maybe he literally doesn't care. Is his tweets about The Last of Us and God of War, even talking about that maybe being delayed and all kinds of stuff, are they accurate? I will say they very well could be. Again, this isn't meant to discredit Tom at all. I'm just saying I hope he's being careful. Is Factions 2 almost done? I would say almost certainly. I've had that game pegged for this year for a long time. Like, I really think that game's coming this year. If it's not, I would say, put it this way, Factions 2 doesn't come this year. One of two things I think happened with Factions. Either Factions is way more ambitious than we all thought it was going to be, because this will come out, years after The Last of Us remake or The Last of Us Part 2. And we know they at least did some work on a multiplayer component before they decided to go all in on The Last of Us being single player only. Like, some stuff leaked out about it and even some test footage of them like doing some stuff. So clearly, this game's been in development in some capacity, for years. I doubt it went into full-scale production until after The Last of Us Part 2 came out. Another thing we know through Jason's reporting is that Bend is like the co-developer on this, like in a big way. It's not just Naughty Dog. Like, it's essentially split development between Naughty Dog and Bend Studio. So you also have two studios on this game. I'll be surprised if it's not this year. Either something went wrong in development, in my opinion, or this game is just like way more ambitious than we thought. Like, it has some kind of crazy stuff we're not expecting at all as part of it, which is entirely possible. But could it be this year? I think so. Like, yeah, that part wouldn't surprise me at all. Totally makes sense it'd come out this year. And in terms of The Last of Us remake, that would surprise me. I did not expect that this year. I thought that would be next year. But it could happen. Could happen. I would be surprised by that. Not something that had penciled in for this year, but could happen. It could. Will we see them bundled? I would say Factions 2 and The Last of Us 2 Director's Cut is possible. Clearly, the remake I don't think would be bundled together. But you could, yeah. Could you see the Director's Cuts of The Last of Us and Factions? It's possible. I don't know, but it's possible. Okay, Super Chats are cleared again. Thanks for a great turnout today, everybody. Big chat. I'll throw this out there. I never spam this kind of stuff, but for everyone in chat, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We do one of these chats every single week. Every week we hit these chats, and I'm going to try and do more YouTube content this year besides the live chats. I can't promise you, but I'm going to try to. Do some more like pre-made stuff and that kind of stuff, shorter videos, I'm going to try and start to get out some more like 10 to 12 minute videos that are easier to digest than these beefy hour plus streams. Live chat's never going away though. I do this every week. So subscribe if you're not, or like the video, help that YouTube algorithm. Okay. I'm going to still go for, I would say, at least another 15 to 20 minutes. Like I said earlier, there was no chance I was going to get to every free question this week. I am sorry. There is just way too many questions this week. Chat's huge. Not saying like huge in terms of viewership, but like so many questions. There is just no way I can get to everybody. But I'm going to still keep trying to hit questions, as many as I possibly can. All right. The Deadly 8. Hey there, Benji. Do you think it is possible that PSVR 2 will take away some developer focus on making PS5 exclusives? To shift to make PSVR 2 titles isn't that bad. Great question, Deadly 8. Here's what I'll say. I do think, and the rumors out there, again, not just from me, I talk about this all the time. I think it was Upload VR, very reputable site. I think that was them. Said that Sony is way heavy this time around on first-party support for PSVR 2. Sounds like it's going to be way more of a first-party push than we saw with the original PSVR, right? Which really the main death knell for PSVR 1 was, I think, Sony not supporting it enough themselves, right? There was a few first-party things on there, but really PlayStation VR, after that first like year or so, it really became driven by like smaller projects and games from like smaller teams. Wasn't as much like big AAA stuff. I actually think part of the reason for that was simply the tech. You know, obviously sales and stuff is going to be a factor there, but I actually think the bigger factor on why we didn't see more big stuff on PSVR 1 was it was pretty cobbled together. Anyone that owned an original PSVR, you know, the controllers weren't great. The headset itself was, I'd say, pretty comfortable actually, but again, it wasn't like the highest end headset. And the PlayStation 4 itself, while it was capable of VR, it was like kind of capable, right? Like if you have a PSVR, you know what I'm talking about. It was still really fun. A lot of cool games on there like Astrobot, but it wasn't like, wow, like cutting edge feeling, right? This time around, PS5 hardware is way more capable of running VR as a whole than the PS4 was. And then clearly the headset and controllers themselves are going to get a big upgrade. So I think that by itself is going to lend itself towards more support because it's going to be easier and better to make games on this. Like I'm sure it was probably a struggle if you were trying to make a pretty good sized game on the original PSVR. That had to be pretty tough to do. It's just going to actually be more accessible and easier to make games now than it was before for it. So is it going to pull some resources away from PS5 exclusives? You know, maybe a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be one of these things where it's going to drastically slow output for a couple reasons. First of all, they buying studios with VR history like Firesprite, right? We know Firesprite is co-developing with Guerrilla this Horizon game. So that was a studio they didn't even own before. So that wasn't, anyone pulling resources away from making the next Uncharted or anything like that, right? Firesprite's like a whole new studio, someone they didn't own. So that's not pulling away resources. And then I have a feeling that other studios like Insomniac, I'm pretty sure is going to make a VR game. They always have multiple projects. So it's not like it's like, oh, wow, suddenly shocker, Insomniac is like usually a one game studio. And now how are they going to do two? We all know, we talk about all the time, Insomniac always is making like 2 or 3 games at a time. They juggle a bunch at once. So I don't think in a big way. Will it pull maybe a little resources away? Maybe some, but I don't think people should panic like they're going to have to pull a ton of resources away, now to do this. I think a lot of this stuff I think is going to be co-developed. Like this Horizon game, guarantee you it uses a bunch of assets from Forbidden West and Zero Dawn, right? Obviously, they're going to have to make that work with VR. They're going to have to do some changes and some things like that. But I guarantee you a lot of it's reusing assets. They're going to create new ones too, but I bet you. And I have a feeling that might be a strategy for a lot of games, right? If they do a Last of Us type experience, you can probably reuse a lot of assets for that. if you're making an Uncharted one or a Spider-Man one, like, you know, you go down the list. If you're using your big IPs, you can just get a lot of assets and stuff from games you've already made. You want to make new stuff too, but so I don't think it'll be too bad. Not too bad. Okay. I think we had another super chat. My goodness. Super chats today are off the chain. You guys are crazy. Highlander at 001 with a 10 super chat. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much, Highlander. Thanks for always being so supportive, and thanks for that 10. Are you going to do any guest appearances on other YouTube channels? Have you heard gaming news that is real big you wish you could share? Oh, yeah. That second part, I'm always sitting on big stuff, dude. So I don't consider myself an insider at all. And there's a main reason I always say I don't consider myself an insider at all. And that is because I don't do the necessary legwork and research to be a true insider, right? I consider a true insider somebody that's going out there. They are actively trying to find this stuff out, and they're actively doing the research to guarantee that this info is accurate, and then packaging it in a way, you know, that makes sense without hurt. Like someone like Jason Schreier, right? That's like as legit of an insider as is literally possible. Dude knows everything, does his research. He puts something out there, you can 99% take it as gospel. I do not do any of that stuff. But do I hear inside info? Constantly. Literally on a constant basis. Constant basis. You know, my YouTube isn't that big, right? We're talking 3,000 subs. My Twitter isn't giant. I think I'm at like 33,000 followers, but it's like decent. And a ton of industry people follow me. I'm going to hear stuff all the time. You know, but I don't put that stuff out there. A, because I don't like to hurt devs and stuff. Like, I really don't want to do that. It's not really my place. And B, I don't do the necessary legwork to make sure that all of this stuff is legit. But, like, do I hear big stuff that I wish I could talk about all the time? And, like, I hear months in advance before it gets announced? I mean, constantly. All the time. And am I going to do guest appearances on other YouTube channels? Yeah, I'd love to do way more than I do right now. I will say that I get asked a decent amount, less than I used to. I talk about this all the time. The weird part is that the bigger I get, the less I get reached out to. I don't know if people think, like when I was in that like 10K or under range, especially I would say from other like YouTubers and stuff, I would get reached out to a lot more. I don't know if people thought I was more accessible then. I am also super busy. Super busy. It's why I don't do more of my own YouTube content, because I mean, between my work, my daughter, researching on Twitter, doing my live chat, and the other thing that gets in the way, because, you know, I mean, I've been asked multiple times in just the last couple weeks if I would go on stuff, and it just doesn't work out with my schedule. A lot of people are streaming their podcasts and things like that. You know, they're recording them a lot of times what's the evening time in the US, right? They're doing these at like 5, they're doing these at like 6 or 7 or whatever. That's when I'm at work. I close a lot, right? Like I work in the nighttime a lot. So that gets in the way too. It's hard for me to line this stuff up. It basically either needs to be on my days off, or it needs to be, which I get 2 random ones a week, or it needs to be during the daytime in the US, because that's whenever I'm available. So will I show up on some more this year? Absolutely. Are they going to be big ones? Probably not. Like, you know, whenever I say big ones, I mean like, you know, is Kind of Funny going to ask me to be on Kind of Funny? Highly doubt it. You know, it was amazing that Sacred Symbols had me on. That was super cool. And it was super cool whenever I got to go on, oh, my brain is going out. Colt Eastwood had me on. That was really cool too. So it doesn't need to be a big podcast. I'll go on anybody's, you know, as long as I have the availability. So you'll see me on somebody. I don't know who. I'll do some this year. Again, are you going to see me on Kind of Funny? Are you going to see me on Easy Allies? Are you going to see me on all these types of people? Odds are very low. I'd love to do it, but they don't ask me. So they'd have to ask me for me to show up. But thank you so much, Highlander. All right. Few more questions. Geez, I wish I could hit all these. Okay. Joseph Crank. The writer, Gavin, 100% was in charge of every line in the game, and until the release and the new faces coming to the top of PlayStation, they in fact did put in charge some management team. And then things changed. The guy, Jeff, leaves the job. Okay. Justice just saying, like, Jeff salty. I know some stuff about that. It ain't just Jeff salty. It ain't just that. If just Jeff is salty, there's a lot of people that are salty about that situation then. But we're not going to go into that. Gmaster7. Oh, I answered that one. Forzathon is back. Hi, Benji. With Xbox Game Pass starting things strong, how many big AAA full-price third-party games do you expect to hit the service day one? 2021 saw Outriders, MLB, and Back for Blood in that regard. Forzathon, here's one thing I'll say. Less hit day one last year than I thought. If you remember, early on in the year, it looked like we might get like a deluge of these because we had that like 1 month where it was like MLB and Outriders, boom. All of a sudden it seemed like, dude, is Microsoft going to get like a big third-party game almost every month or every other month, day one? And that did not pan out. You know, there was definitely some big ones, and most of the ones they put on there did really well on Game Pass. Outriders saw a huge boost in players, MLB huge, Back for Blood had a huge player count. But clearly they were not able to negotiate enough deals to do as many as I thought they were going to. We saw a lot of indie or AA games hit day one. We did not see many AAA games. So my guess would be that the fact we did not see more of those, because from what I understand, at least through things that like Jeff Grubb has said, they have the money to do it. It's just more of a question of convincing publishers to do these deals. My guess would be, since we saw less than I anticipated last year, that we will continue to see less than I would expect this year. So will we see some? Yes. If we're talking AAA, third-party games, I will guess more than last year, but not like an every month pace or anything like that. Hope I'm wrong. I would guess maybe 5 to 6 this year. Maybe 5 to 6. What those games will be, no idea. And again, we're talking AAA. You'll see a lot more if we factor in AA games like we saw last year, right? Through things like The Ascent and The Medium and The Gunk. And like, I'm not counting that stuff. AAA, your big giant games, 5 to 6 probably this year. Not counting first party. Yoda Soda. Benji Boy. Do you think it is possible that WB Games might start releasing 2 DC games a year? They got Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad this year. They got Wonder Woman next year alongside Injustice 3. Yoda, the rumor is Injustice 3 is not happening. The rumor is that it is Mortal Kombat, what would that be, 12? That is the current rumor. So I don't think Injustice is happening. I'd love it because I really like Injustice 1 and 2. But the word is from Jeff Grubb that Mortal Kombat is next. They decided to not do another Injustice game. They're going to just go straight from Mortal Kombat 11 to 12. So 2 DC games a year, I would say not a lock. Some years, yes. It just depends on how the release output pans out. I mean, heck, this year they've got, yeah, well, I was thinking Harry Potter, but that's 3 AAA WB games scheduled for this year. It will just depend. Some years too, yes, but I don't think that's like a set internal mandate. Like we must hit 2 DC games a year. They will have that some years, but not every year. Batman Forever. So does the Days Gone situation confirm that Metacritic is more important for PlayStation than sales? No. Like I said, I do think the Metacritic score played a factor, but I think that factor is more in regards to how it lined up with the development cycle of the game, right? I think that's what it was. So was Metacritic a factor in this? Probably. But not in the way people think about it. Not just strictly that Sony was like, this game got 71 meta, that means we absolutely will not do another strictly because Metacritic. I think it was more like I mentioned before, hey, we gave you guys a really long dev cycle. It was really troubled, and at the end of the day, the game didn't review well. I think all those factors played into it. Elias Stapleton. Asia, Sony, Xbox 10-1 in India. Yeah, Japan, Sony, Xbox 10-1. I mean, there are shortages, but it seems bad Xbox is selling so low. So, Elias, definitely, here's the reality. Microsoft has a lot of things they need to improve in markets that are outside of primarily English speaking, like that's your primary language countries. We kind of know that, right? So they do have a lot of work to do. Do they have success in some markets that are not primarily English speaking countries? Yes. Mexico is a prime example. They've done great in Mexico, and even Brazil. They've done pretty good in Brazil as well overall, right? So there are markets outside of like the traditional strongholds we think of for Xbox in the US and the UK. But there's just no doubt about it that there is a lot of markets, particularly Asia, right? You look at India, you look at Japan, you look at, some of the things that we hear out of other countries. They just have a lot of work to do there, yeah. Now, in regards to the 10-1 thing in India, of course, that turned into a giant console war in my replies. That wasn't the goal. Like, I was just reporting the numbers, that were out there. But people were worrying about it, Xbox fans and Sony fans. The reality is part of that has to do with where they're shipping these consoles. Clearly, Microsoft right now is really focused on the US and it looks like the UK, whereas Sony is still trying to ship consoles globally more, right? They're trying to get more of these into Europe. They're trying to get more of these into the US. They're trying to get more of these into Asia. So they're just shipping to more territories. But there's no doubt Xbox has a lot of work to do to raise the brand outside of, US and UK, really, in Mexico and Brazil to some extent. All right, I'm going to be a little picky because there's a lot that I still, like, it's crazy how many there are. Holy cow, holy cow, holy cow. So I'm going to try to not hit ones that kind of are similar to stuff we've already talked about. I'm going to try and hit some new topics right before we bounce out. Joseph X1. Hi, Benji. How are you? Doing good. Doing good right now, Joseph, actually. I have an off-topic question. Did Sackboy sell well? I bought it recently and am having a great time. Why didn't people talk about it when the PS5 was released? I loved this game. Yeah, Sackboy was amazing. I loved it. The music levels are really cool. I would love to see a sequel to it. The direct question, did it sell well? I mean, this game was not like a big seller by any means. These questions get a little tough when we're talking about a project like this because I have no concept of what the budget is. So, like, let's say that this game had, if this had a giant budget, if this was something like a Days Gone or a Ghost of Tsushima, which it clearly isn't, but let's just say it was, like, would the sales that it have be good for a budget like that? No. Just no, not even close. But I have no clue what Sackboy's budget was. Is this a game that they'd be happy with 1 million sales? Like that would be considered a success? I literally have no idea. Literally none. So, that's a hard one to guess how it performed because I have zero idea of the budget and I have zero idea of what Sony's expectations were. What I will say is it's a great game. I thought I'd love to see another one like that. But I hate to say it. It's hard for me to say how that game performed because that's one of those weird ones that I have no concept of what they were expecting out of that. It's hard for me to believe that they expected that game to be a huge seller. My guess is it was the type of game that like, hey, if we do over 1 million units, this is really cool. But I don't know that. I mean, you never know. Sometimes people have crazy expectations for games. So I don't know. What's up, Red Dead series? Yeah, Sounds PP7 has a great question actually that lines up with that. What's a game/series you suspect performs well relative to his budget but doesn't have reliable sales data? Always wondered how well as a series like Ride has to do in order to get multiple sequels. Great question, Sounds PP7. One I'll shout out here that I mean, it has some reliable sales data. It's just one of those ones that a lot of people don't realize, like no one talks about. Farming Simulator's like the go-to for this. That franchise has become huge. It sells so many units that a lot of people just still don't realize how successful Farming Simulator is. That's one I will absolutely throw out there. There's no doubt Farming Simulator is a game that is just underappreciated by a lot of people in terms of its financial success. So Farming Sim is going to be one. Ride's a great point out, right? I don't have any idea how those games sell, but they keep making them, so it must do well. Another one that was out there for a while was those sniper games. Those did well. What are they called? Sniper Elite. That's another one that people don't really think of, but they just kept making them. Yeah, Sniper Elite. That's another one you can factor in there. I mean, they're up to what? Sniper Elite 5 or something like that? Yeah, Sniper Elite 5 was just recently announced, so that's another one you can factor in there that a lot of people don't think about. They just keep selling and they keep making them. There's a bunch. There's like 2 off the top of my head, though. Benji. Ken Levine's new studio. Yeah, sorry about this. We haven't mentioned it. I have no idea how much longer I'm going to go or not, y'all. We're just winging it. We're going to see how long the stream goes. I don't know. We could be done in the next 10 minutes and it could stretch. I do not know. So we're out there right now, y'all. We're just figuring it out as it goes since there's such a big chat. Benji, Ken Levine's new studio development issues. And it is a beefy boy, so I understand if not everyone can stick around. You can always come back and watch it later or whatever. Ken Levine's new studio development issues sound similar to other troubles Peter Molyneux or Hideo Kojima had. Is the artistic vision of visionary games directors a challenge in development? This is a great question. Let's talk about auteurs, right? This became a common talking point on Twitter whenever Jason's article came out. You saw all kinds of stuff. You saw that, and if for anyone that missed it, basically Ken Levine's game is in development hell. No surprise. He made this new studio and we never heard anything about it ever again, essentially. I don't think anyone is shocked to hear this news. It sucks as someone like me that really loves Ken Levine's games. Sucks to see. Not a shocker. So let's really quick say, are these visionaries, these auteurs, these, whatever you want to call them, I still think there's a place for them and I still think it's very important. Saw a lot of people be like, we don't need this kind of thing in the gaming industry. I think that's a foolish take, to be honest with you, and I'm not trying to defend anyone, but I think it's foolish. Not the correct take to have. What you see, and this happens even in movies, this happens in TV shows, it happens in all kinds of stuff. Any form of art, right? Having a strong vision, a strong concept, something outside the box or forward thinking or, all this kind of stuff that we talk about. That sort of thing is very important. Does it have to be centralized in one figure? No, right? Could come from a team of people. But sometimes that does come from one person, right? Sometimes in Hollywood, there are those legendary screenwriters and those legendary directors and stuff. It's not an accident that this sort of thing happens. It's not an accident that Steven Spielberg is as successful as he is and has released so many award-winning films and box office successes. It's not an accident that James Cameron pulls off the kind of stuff he has, right? The important part here, and the thing I think that's the problem with Ken Levine, having someone with a vision, having someone with that kind of stuff is important, but what is also important is sometimes curtailing that and saying a game has to come out. You can't do this forever. And if you're struggling to get your person there, basically got to lay down the law. And that is something that actually happens more, I would say, in Hollywood with movies than it is kind of happening in games. At the end of the day, if you're at a giant studio and stuff, they have an extreme amount of power, and Hollywood's been around for so long, they're not afraid to throw it around. They'll throw a director off, right? Happens all the time. I can name you a ton of movies, and you guys know a ton of movies, that the director was fired mid-production. You're gone. We got to get somebody else in here. I'm not saying that companies should be willy-nilly just firing people and things like that. But at the end of the day, you do have to come to a point where when you're in a Ken Levine type situation where the guy, he just cannot get the game out, you need to have intervention. And that actually is what happened exactly with BioShock Infinite. A lot of people forget this. BioShock Infinite was in a very similar scenario. And what happened, 2K brought in Rod Ferguson to finish the game. They didn't say, hey, Ken Levine, you can't have your vision. You can't do this. But Rod, literally, his job was to come in there and get the game shipped. He came in and he said, these are the decisions we're making. The game's coming out, and this is what we're doing now. Sometimes you have to do that. And it sounds like what's happening here in this Ken Levine situation is, at least the vibe I'm getting, the company is not laying the law down enough. Eventually the game's got to come. Man, your vision, it's great. It's cool you have all these concepts, but we got to get a game shipped. We can't develop a game for 10 years. So that would be my thing. Are these visionaries important? Yes. But it's also, at the end of the day, still important to get a product out. And, sometimes you need to intervene. And however that is, it is. But, yeah, kind of my thoughts on it. Samuel Tolbert. Yo, Benji, what is up, Samuel? Hope you're doing well, bro. I'm doing good, man. Hope you're doing good. Current chatter is that PSVR 2 isn't backwards compatible. If this is true, this is a big blow. If this is the case, do you see it being an issue? Yes. Thanks, and here's to 2022. Well, thank you so much, Samuel. Thanks for being a good friend. Thanks for being a great guy. And thanks for being in my chat, dude. You're awesome. You know that. Okay. If PSVR 2 isn't backwards compatible, it's a pretty freaking huge blow. And here's what I would say why. Because the people that are super into PSVR are really into it. They've built up really big libraries. There's actually some evidence of that. Now, is it all VR owners have a ton of games? No, but there actually has been some data. I can't remember when this was put out. This was years ago now. And I don't remember the exact source. I honestly don't know. I don't know if this was NPD. I don't know if this was Sony. I don't know. There was something that came out years ago that was saying that a lot of PSVR owners that actively engaged with it had a lot of games. I think there's a couple reasons for that. A lot of VR games are cheaper, right? A lot of them. A lot of them are $20 or less. So you can kind of collect a lot. And so if you have all these people building this library up, and then, for example, you just had Sony give away, 3 VR games as PS Plus for a couple months. That would be so weird to not support that library moving forward. Just bizarre. That would be a bizarre choice. I'm hoping this is not true. I'm really hoping this is not true. I get the controllers are different. I get the headset is different. But Sony should do something to figure that out. Even if it's not across the board backwards compatibility, because maybe you can't make sure that every single, third party or indie project works with the new controllers or such. At least the big games, the ones that people own, the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners and the Beat Sabers, which is on PlayStation right now, and all those other kinds of things. You at least, I think, need to figure out a way to make the big stuff backwards compatible. That would be a big mistake. Yeah, it would be an issue. It would be an issue, yes. All right. How much forward do I think that Ubisoft Plus will come to Game Pass? No. Nope. And if it does, I think it'll be, I've seen some people throw around, maybe it'll be an add-on. Maybe something like that, but as part of the core subscription, I don't think so, because like we talked about earlier, the price difference. EA Play with $5 a month, Ubisoft Plus is $15. I think Ubisoft's going to ask for a lot more money, so I think that's the main issue. But I mean, I don't know this. This is just me theorizing. Did we have a super chat? I think we had a super chat. Holy cow, 2 super chats. My God. Benji here with a 5. Thank you so much, Benji. I think that's your 3rd or 4th super chat, dude. You're amazing. There are rumors Sony secured exclusivity for Final Fantasy for the whole gen. That would be wild, but I wouldn't be shocked. Why would Sony pay for a franchise that most on PlayStation anyways? That most play, I'm assuming you mean. You know, here's the thing. I would not be shocked by this at all. And it's a good question, right? If so many people already play on PlayStation anyways, why make it exclusive? I actually think there might be one wild card here that many people don't think about in regards to exclusivity. So, there's no doubt, right? Final Fantasy traditionally, for the big Final Fantasies, right? Let's say the big giant multi-platform, Final Fantasy 13s and 15s and whatevers. What's that split look like? We're talking like 90% of sales on PlayStation, right? Like between PlayStation and Xbox, we're talking a very small percentage, 10%, maybe 15% on some, because it has happened. But like, we're not talking close to 50-50, right? We're talking the vast bulk of a franchise like Final Fantasy's, selling on PlayStation. I think the two reasons you would pay for a whole gen of exclusivity is actually twofold. And the second point, I think, is the one that maybe doesn't get thought about as much. The first part is just the marketing of it. I know that sounds silly, but you're sending the message, this is exclusive. If you want Final Fantasy, you buy a PlayStation. It might sound like a little thing. It might sound like something that most people know anyways, but it does put a strong marketing point out there. Final Fantasy fans, you're buying a PlayStation. You want this franchise this gen, you go on PlayStation. So that's part of it. The other part, and I think the part people might not think about, is Game Pass. So if you aren't locking this down as an exclusive, could that become Game Pass fuel? And we have seen that Microsoft is all out trying to sign Game Pass fuel, right? If you don't have that locked in, and trust me, Sony does see Game Pass as competition, especially for software sales. If you don't lock that down as an exclusive, what if Microsoft signs a huge check and they somehow get Final Fantasy on Game Pass? I mean, that is a big risk that you're running, right? Especially for a franchise that traditionally, like you say, is associated with PlayStation. If you start locking that stuff into Game Pass and it starts to become multiple things, we've started to see Yakuza, which has now left, some of them, but you start to see Yakuza in there. You've seen Kingdom Hearts in there, Final Fantasy in there. It can just start to build that Game Pass library up, and with those Japanese games. And as we know, again, PlayStation sells the vast bulk of these. That wouldn't change either way. But that is, I think, a thought. Like, hey, we don't want this on Game Pass. We want this associated with PlayStation. So just a couple thoughts there. Highlander with a 2, just sticker saying GG. Thank you so much, Highlander. We're going to blast out a few more. I don't know how many, but a few more. You guys asked way too many questions for me to say no. A few more and I got to go. Brandon, I think was the last one I left off on. What's up, JCat? JCat's in the chat. What is up, JCat? You're amazing. Thanks for helping to mod, JCat. You're awesome. Hi, Benji. You once said you think Grand Theft Auto 6 will be announced this year. Do you still think so? I think announcing it next year for the GTA 10th anniversary would be better. Very well could. So whenever I said that I thought it would be announced this year, I was very clear that wasn't insider info at all. It was just me speculating, thinking that they could. I don't know. I could... it's hard to say. It's hard to say. If they do announce it this year, I think it's going to be late this year. I would still say it is possible, because the GTA PS5 and Series X versions are going to be out soon, right? Isn't that like March? Isn't it? So, I mean, if you announce at the end of the year, you already have like the next gen upgrades and stuff already out there. They're already out on the market and everything, so it doesn't really hurt that. Yeah, when is that? Yeah, March. I would still say it's possible. Possible they announce it at the end of the year, but it's by no means a lock. Whenever I was saying that, I'm just theorizing here that I think we might see it announced this year, but just because it's been in development for a long time, like a long time. That game really has been. It's been years and years of development, but it's still also years away, so it's tough to say. I would say it's possible, but by no means, Brandon, is that a lock. Next year, it's very possible. Brandon, why is there no The Last of Us 2 sales update? It's a great question, and the only thing I can think is the game did not perform as well as Sony wanted. Now, some people will get upset whenever I say that, and I do not know this by any means. So don't take that as no lock. I don't see why they would have never said anything after the first 3 days, because that's all we ever got, if it was having incredible legs. Now, did The Last of Us Part 2 sell a lot? Yes, it sold a ton. So whenever I say that, that doesn't mean, oh my God, Benji's saying the game bombed. Because you always want to see people getting fights about The Last of Us Part 2. To be very clear, I am not saying this game didn't sell a lot of copies. I am not saying that this game wasn't profitable. Nothing like that. But the fact that they never gave an update after those first 3 days, that to me says that it probably did not sell as much as they were hoping. Probably are a bit afraid that people will directly compare that game to The Last of Us Part 1, and they might not want to make that comparison. I think we will get an update at some point, but that's a total guess. Because it would be weird. Almost every game they've ever released, they give a second sales update. Like in recent years. Horizon Zero Dawn got multiple updates. Again, sometimes they take long breaks, but there is at least a sales update. You know, God of War got sales updates. You know, we got updates on Ratchet when it came out, Returnal. Like, they've given a lot of updates since, and they have never said anything after the first launch sales. So we'll have to see. But that's the only thing I can guess. Randy Norman, how is Xbox going to market all their first-party games? It will be a challenge. We know based off leaks and insider info that Avowed, Contraband, and Hellblade 2 are coming out in 2023 and Perfect Dark, apparently, but unless it's delayed. But we haven't seen much of these games. Yeah, and there's a lot. So it's almost the problem that Netflix runs into, right? Where Netflix basically doesn't market any of their stuff. Like, they just put it on the service. You know, that's a prime example. For example, The Witcher Season 2, which actually did really well. Big viewership for Witcher Season 2. Like, they've already greenlit Season 3. And as long as Season 3 does well, I think we're going to get Witcher Season 4 and Season 5. But a lot of their content, Netflix has so much content, they barely market it. Like, barely. They kind of just show you like a random trailer or two, and then it's on the service. They don't do like big marketing pushes because there's a lot of content. Xbox potentially could start to go down a similar road with the amount of releases they're getting. However, it's still not breakneck pace. We're talking the goal Phil said is a game a quarter. You can market a game a quarter. You know, you definitely can. You definitely can. It gives you like 3 months around, give or take. They're not all going to be 3 months apart, but if you're doing a game a quarter, you got 2-3 months to play with in between each one. They can still market it. It will, though, become very important to market well. Yeah, they're going to have good marketing on these games so they don't get overshadowed by each other, but it can be done. It can be done. You know, Netflix is doing like a movie and a show, multiple shows like every week, so that's why there's zero marketing, but Xbox can do it. I'm not too worried about it. Logan Hardy. Hey, Benji, do you believe that The Last of Us remake... Oh, and Factions 2. Like I said, Factions 2 I really do think is this year. Remake would surprise me, but I mean, I guess it's not impossible. I didn't see that coming, though. GOAT status. Grubb said that Xbox is basically trying to get to E3 to do their Starfield blowout and get people hyped for 2023, which is when most of the titles will drop. Yeah, first half of this year is looking much lighter for Xbox, right? You know, it's kind of funny. I sent out a tweet, and it was about how, like, stacked the first half of the year is for PlayStation. And a lot of the replies were like, it's funny. It almost seems like PlayStation and Xbox are, like, playing seesaw with each other on, like, the halves of the years, right? Because you look at the first half of last year for Sony, and it was, like, a great start to the year, right? They had Returnal in there. They had Ratchet and Clank in there. They were still riding off the high of those like super late releases of launch titles like, you know, Demon Souls and Spider-Man. And then the second half of that year, they really didn't have much, right? It was almost nothing actually, because Kena is not really a first-party title. But then you had Xbox, which had like nothing really the first half of the year. But then they had, like Psychonauts, and which I know is multi-platform, is a first-party game. And they had like Forza Horizon, and they had, Halo Infinite. And now you look at this year, and it's like Sony's coming super heavy in the first half of the year. You've got, you've got Horizon and maybe God of War. We don't really know yet. And Gran Turismo and Sifu, which is a console exclusive, and Forspoken, which is a console exclusive. And you have Microsoft with like not really much in that first half. But then the end of the year, they're going to have Starfield and Redfall. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Right now, we're in a bit of a seesaw scenario. And it doesn't surprise me, that they're just trying to hold out really for Starfield. I'm expecting in terms of first party and exclusive stuff the first half of this year to be fairly light for Xbox, but I mean, it's not really the end of the world. Okay. Just a couple more and I'm out. Tried to hit as many as I could say. It was a crazy long stream. Tried to hit what I could. There was so much to talk about though. DB will rise. Benji, do you play Apex Legends? I did when it came out, and I fell off that game hard. It says, my game of the year in 2021, best FPS Battle Royale of all time. I actually agree with you. Of all the Battle Royales I've played, Apex is by far my favorite, but I have fallen off hard. I just haven't played it in forever. I keep thinking about getting back into Apex, but I'm like so far behind on Apex that it's like kind of daunting, and I play so many games, but DB, Apex Legends is legitimately amazing. Yeah, it's like legit. I think it is the best Battle Royale as well. Oh, man. Making sure I didn't miss any super chats. All right, there's a super chat. Frostbite Slash, holy cow, I think it's your third or fourth with a 5. And then we're going to bust out 5 more minutes of questions, because then I'm at 2 hours. I'm not going past 2 hours. So I'm going to hit this, couple more, and then I got to go because a 2-hour stream is beefy. Frostbite Slash 5. Since Horizon, God of War, and GT7 got delayed out of 2021, where were the 2022 games supposed to be, and why haven't they been revealed yet? Seems odd to me. Frostbite, I've talked about this before. I think a lot of the games, because people ask me all the time, they're like, hey, are we going to see tons of delays this year like we saw last year? And I've said, I do think there's going to be some still, but I don't think that the amount of delays will be as bad as last year. And one thing I have said, though, is that I think a lot of the games that did get delayed in 2022 were never announced. They never announced that game. So those 22 games are now 23, and you never heard about it anyways. So it kind of got stealth delayed. I think that's the case for a lot of stuff. Was that the case for all of the first-party games at Sony? I have no idea. But put it this way, if your 2021 games, for example, got delayed by like all of them 6 to 12 months, makes sense that those other games would also get staggered 6 to 12 months. So I think that's the main reason that the supposed 2022 games haven't been revealed, is I think those games didn't get announced and they got stealth delayed till 2023. I think that happened at a lot of publishers. So you will probably get those game announcements later this year once those big games that you're talking about are announced, right? Are released. Once you have Horizon out in February, once you have Gran Turismo out in March, once they hit that next big showcase event, that's probably when you'll see those games that were 2022 that are now 2023, except for maybe like something like Factions or something. Dead Planet with a 2 super chat. Will Starfield hit Skyrim/Fallout hype levels? It is hard to say without seeing the game. It's just hard to say. Will it be as big as Skyrim and Fallout 4? I'm going to say no. Strictly because those games were multi-platform and they sold ginormous, gargantuan amounts of units across the board. Well, here, in sales, will it sell as much as Starfield or as much as Skyrim and Fallout 4? I don't see that happening. Total players is a big wild card because the game is still on PC and Bethesda is enormous on PC. and it has Game Pass, which makes accessibility super easy. So can it get the types of players that Skyrim and Fallout had? It's possible, but in order for that to happen, the game needs to be spectacularly good, right? So especially Skyrim. So it's hard to say without seeing the game. I think it has potential in terms of players to hit those types of numbers long term. I do not see it outselling those games, though. No. Not lifetime. Maybe out the gate, it has huge launch units. You know, I'm sure this game's still going to sell ridiculous on Steam. But, like, is it going to sell like 30 plus million like Skyrim did? That's a little hard to believe. I mean, it's actually way higher than that, but I'm just throwing a number out there. Hard for me to buy that. But, I mean, it's still going to sell a lot, no doubt. Okay. Oh, my God. 2 questions and I'm out. I have to. I literally don't have a choice. 2 questions and I gotta go. I didn't hit like even remotely enough free questions today, but I'm sorry. Like I've been going 2 hours. I'm sorry. 2 good questions that are not about what we've talked about and we're gone. I'm gonna pick 2 randoms out. I'm so sorry if I didn't get to your guys' question, but I've been going for 2 hours. 2 and we're gone. Trying to hit topics we haven't talked about. This one's super fast, so I don't know if I'm going to count it or not. LMO, Benji, glad to see you back. What is up, LMO? Your name's Lucas. What is up, Lucas? Question about Tango Gameworks. When do you think Ghostwire Tokyo will release? Your predictions about sales. Probably October. Makes sense, right, to put it in there. It's definitely a second half of the year game, I think. And, I mean, it's like Halloween, you know, I think probably October. Maybe they go a little bit before that. Maybe they go September. Could be earlier. I mean, it could be a first half of the year game. But my guess is they're going to probably put it in the second half. And sales expectations are not high. Not high. I hate to say that, but not high. This game doesn't... I feel bad saying this. It doesn't look as good as I hoped it was going to be, you know? I hope I'm totally wrong. I love horror games, but this seems to me to be like a weird hybrid between action and horror, and I have no idea if it's actually going to be good. I hope it's good, but I was hoping it would be like when it's first announced, like way more horror than what it looks like it's actually going to be. Sales predictions are not high. Hope I'm wrong, though. People are asking, apparently I missed it. We're asking about if it's wired. Yeah, it is wired. We already know that. One cable. It's a USB-C cable. For PSVR 2. Plugs in through USB-C. Danger Man. Battlefield 2042 peaks are getting worse than Battlefield 5. It's not good. You know, it's not. There's just no other way to put it. It's not good. It's not good. Not good. Danger Man, Halo Infinite needs Forge, more content, and co-op. Yeah. Yep. You know, it's still holding close to 60,000 peak. I am glad to see that. I actually was worried it was actually even lower. I hadn't checked it in like a week. I thought this might be getting down to like the 30s and 40,000s peak. So to see it still peaking at like 60K, again, I wanted this to be peaking higher to be seen as like a huge success. But the fact it's holding close to 60K peak on Steam, I'm glad it's at least holding that. The big problem for Halo, though, Danger Man, yeah, is content. That's the big problem. This game needs more maps more often. This 6-month season is going to kill the momentum. I already talked about that. I said that this year, you know, I expect that peak to go low. You know, I hope I'm wrong, but once we hit like March and April, I cannot see this game peaking that high. I mean, a 6-month season is insane. I know why they did it, because they want time to work on the core experience of the game and to give the team a break, but holy cow, that player count's going to dip low. Season 2 needs to be really good. Really good. 6 months is way too long. And Goat says, if Halo gets a Battle Royale, then I think it goes up. Absolutely. Yep. And it will. It'll get a Battle Royale. I'm like 99.9% sure that Halo Battle Royale is coming. Ryan Kelly addressed how quickly the game went on sale. I've talked about it. Yeah, Days Gone sold a lot of units discounted. That's not a surprise. It was profitable though. Like I know that for a fact. For a fact. All right. I'm still going. Like I'm still hitting stuff. We're close to the end. We're close to the end. King of the Dry Bones. Even Demon Souls got a sales update, and that sold around 2 million. Yeah. I think Sony was just internally very disappointed in Days Gone overall. I don't think that came strictly down to how many units the game sold in terms of greenlighting a sequel. I think it's all the other stuff that we talked about. The critic reception, the extremely long development time, them just feeling like the game didn't live up to the amount of resources they put into it. You know, again, do I think that the team should have got a second chance? Yes. But I'm not the one at Sony making those decisions. And those people are way smarter and way better paid than I am. Ooh, they make a lot more money than old Benji boy. And they deserve to. All right. We're almost done here. I'm just trying to hit like a couple more. JC Zero Edge launching this year with the chip shortage is an interesting choice. It is. But the thing that actually helps, weirdly enough, is that the PSVR 2 shouldn't be too advanced in chipset. Like, is it going to have some stuff in it? Of course. But most of the processing is going to be done, you know, through the console itself, right? So really, it's actually more getting like things like screens and the other components that they're going to be competing with, not as much directly in chips. Again, is this going to require some stuff, some processing in the headset? Yes. But it's not like a console, right? Where you're needing like some pretty big silicon. And that's where a lot of the competition comes from. So it's actually a little bit more doable because this thing's not going to have the types of amount of chip that something like a PS5 or a Series X is going to need, right? It's going to be actually, I think the bigger competition is going to be through getting like competition in screens and things like that. So that helps them. That's not actually a console. That's, you know, a headset with most of the processing not on board. Yeah, split end. Maybe I'm ridiculously off, but a VR headset utilizing a console for power might not have the same chips. Exactly. Yep, spot on. That helps them. Again, they're not going to be immune to shortages, but it does help. It does help. Ryan Kelly, does Fallen Order land this year? Does it get announced this year? 100%. Not a doubt in my mind. Fallen Order 2, it's going to get announced this year. Will it release this year? Fallen Order 1 was what, 2019? So that's what, 3 years? I don't know. 3 years might be pushing it. Yeah, that was November. I am 100% confident it gets announced. Release seems a little sketchier. I don't know. I don't know if it can make this year. That's a 3-year dev time in a pandemic. Doesn't seem good. I'm going to say early 2023. But I do think they announce it. Goat status. I played X Defiant in closed beta. It was not good. I've heard that from a couple people, actually, Goat. I have heard that from a couple people. You are not the only one, so. Ryan saying, my thoughts on Square Enix getting into NFTs. You know, I've already said I'm not a big fan of NFTs at all. I don't judge people that are into NFTs. It's not really my style. I'm not, like, if you follow me on YouTube or Twitter, I'm basically never lecturing people on how to live their lives. find that really lame. The people that are constantly telling you how to live your life. I ain't going to do that. Do I like NFTs? No. I will never spend a cent on an NFT. I have said I don't think NFTs will be successful in gaming, but I do think it is bad for the environment. But so are a lot of things, including things that I do. So again, it's a little hypocritical of me to scream at someone for buying an NFT when I do a lot of stuff that is not good for the environment. So I ain't going to judge people on it. I have no interest in NFTs. I don't think NFTs will be successful in gaming, and I think they're bad for the environment. But I am not going to judge any of you if you buy them. Like I say all the time, if you went up to a random person and were extremely racist, I would definitely judge you. Or if you were extremely sexist, I would definitely judge you. But something like an NFT, I ain't going to judge you. Okay. I think we're going to bounce, dude. I hit a lot of questions today. Dead Planet says, Benji, there's only 58 people. If you think the info you heard on Sound Hill's old news, just say it. Dude, no way. My Twitter's way bigger than my YouTube, and that will go everywhere. Everywhere. I'm by no means famous, but I also ain't unknown. I have over 33,000 followers on Twitter. That's going to go everywhere. Ain't no chance. No chance. I would say that. Nope. Okay. I'm out. That's it. That's all I've got time for. That's it. That's all I've got, dude. That's all I've got. I'm sorry. I streamed for over 2 hours. If I miss your question, I super apologize. You all are amazing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not already. Shout out to the 35 people that stayed to the end of this thing. It was a beefy chat. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Helps the YouTube algorithm. I did not miss any super chats, right? None. Let me make sure. No super chats were missed. We are good. Thank you for a legendary chat. All of you that donated, unbelievable. Like I say all the time, those super chats directly fund my gaming. So thank you so much, everybody. I use that to buy games, to cover games, to talk about games. I don't spend it going to McDonald's and Taco Bell. Thank you so much, everybody. Subscribe. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. Odds are if you're here, you already follow me. But just in case you don't, and I'll see you next time, everyone. Stay safe. Play some games. Y'all are amazing. Support's unbelievable. You all rock. And I will see you soon. All right? Peace, everybody. Have an amazing day or night, whatever, wherever you are. Thanks. Bye. See you. Bye, 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 bye.